Hi, everyone. My name is Renee, and I am the founder of High Class Pineapple, which is a delivery service. And I'm joined today by Allison Kirchhofer, who is a cannabis CPA. So we're going to be discussing all of the needs of entrepreneurs and other cannabis business owners and how a CPA can really help you get your business off the ground. So Allison, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be talking about my favorite topic, which is cannabis accounting.
It is a fun topic.
Sure
Allison, tell us about you and tell us about your business.
Sure. So I am a CPA, like you mentioned, and I just love entrepreneurship. I love small business, and it's my goal just to see small business owners thrive in any market, really. My background is in New York City's restaurant industry, where I worked with restaurateurs as an outsourced CFO. But I love the cannabis industry for a lot of reasons, but mainly because, I just want to see the plant return to the forefront of society where it once stood. So I work with cannabis entrepreneurs in various stages of their business life cycle, from the application phase to ramping up once they are awarded a license, and then once they're operating. I live in Nyack, New York, which is a fun little hippie town right by the Hudson River, with my husband and my son and my 3 cats. And that's me.
I know you mentioned working with entrepreneurs like myself. How important is it for any cannabis business owner to find a CPA with cannabis experience, one, and how is doing taxes for a cannabis business different than a New York City restaurant or any other business?
Great questions. So cannabis accounting is unique in that tax actually drives accounting policy. And that's not typically the case with a small business. So I know we are definitely going to be talking more specifically about the tax codes that impact cannabis, but essentially the tax code is written to put illegal enterprises out of business. And cannabis companies exist in this weird gray area where they are both legal and illegal at the same time. So you need a CPA that is armed with the knowledge of how to properly utilize the tax provisions that can be beneficial to a cannabis business. It's called accrual accounting. It's necessary. Without it, a cannabis company will pay an effective tax rate of 100%. So, it's not just about categorizing an expense as office supplies or repairs and maintenance. A cannabis business actually has to go through a painstaking process with their CPA, where they identify and they allocate every expense line by line, those that are directly linked to revenue, as a return of capital, which is called cost of goods sold, which may be a phrase that some listeners have heard. That return of capital or cost of goods sold, the feds cannot tax. So in a nutshell, it is far more complex to set up and implement books for a cannabis business than a non-cannabis business.
That is, that's a little scary for someone who's starting a business.
It's scary if you don't have someone there that knows what they're doing to kind of hold your hand,
And can you hold our hand right now through talking about tax liability?
Sure. So tax liability, so the irony here is that the feds are requiring businesses that are illegal under federal law to comply with US tax law. So basically, cannabis businesses, they have the same compliance requirements as any other business to file, pay, and report their taxes on time. So we're talking income taxes, 940s and 941s for payroll, state and local sales and excise taxes. They have to make estimated tax payments. Cannabis companies deal with cash, a lot of cash, so they need to be aware of the requirement to file Form 8300 for payments over $10,000. But otherwise, nothing special here, just an emphasis on good books and records. So, a cannabis company can file and pay accurate returns on time.
Why do we hear so much about 280E? I think the other one I always hear about is 263A. Mm-hmm. So what are those? What do they mean for me and for other cannabis businesses?
Sure. So yeah, 280E, that is the tax code section that says that businesses that traffic illegal substances cannot take ordinary and necessary business deductions. So there are two big words there that I said, traffic and business. And that discussion is a bit outside of the scope of our current conversation, but basically the questions are, what is trafficking? Are you trafficking in your business? And also, what is considered a business? Because business does not equal legal entity in the eyes of the IRS. So these are just some important questions that you have to answer when you're tax planning with your CPA. But to get more into those tax codes, so 280E, I'll just say first and foremost, it applies to THC companies, not hemp or CBD, because hemp and CBD are federally legal. So just a high level example here. So you have a cannabis THC business and you have a music store. They each make $100,000 in revenue. The music store can reduce that amount by taking deductions for things like rent, payroll, insurance, other general and administrative expenses. And they reduce their taxable income, so that music store may only pay taxes on, say, $10,000. The cannabis business cannot take those deductions because of 280E. So they're going to pay tax on the full $100,000, and that is huge. 280E is intended to punish these businesses. So the only way to mitigate this is to utilize the provisions in tax code 263A that you mentioned, and I will add tax code 471. So 263A is the uniform capitalization rules, and 471 are inventory costing regulations. And together, these tax codes provide cannabis businesses a permissible inventory method to recoup its production costs. I'm putting that in quotes because that's direct from the IRS guidance. So recouping production costs, in other words, the return of capital, which I mentioned earlier, cost of goods sold, the feds cannot tax. So just very high level, capitalization is the accounting mechanism by which an expense is categorized as an asset called inventory in this case. So when that inventory is sold, it is reclassed as cost of goods sold, which is that return of capital. And it's basically a cannabis company's only option to lower taxable income. And I will just leave with a major takeaway here is that knowing your inventory numbers will actually decrease your tax liability. So a lot of businesses may not realize that there's a strong connection between your inventory count and your tax bill.
That is very good to know. The other thing that I've heard a lot about, which I don't know if this is like a scared thing or if this really happens, is, prepare to be audited. Cannabis businesses are always being audited. So is that true? How often are cannabis businesses being audited? And how can a small business owner prepare for that audit?
Sure. So there is truth behind that. The IRS has labeled marijuana businesses as an emerging compliance issue, and they've listed it as a key enforcement initiative in 2021. Other initiatives, for example, are virtual currency and the gig economy. So what does this mean? This means that they are mobilizing and they are putting resources towards auditing these businesses. I don't have exact numbers on how many audits they've conducted on cannabis businesses in recent years, but this basically tells us that yes, a cannabis company needs to be planning to be audited. They should plan from the beginning. Don't just expect it and hope for the best, but by plan, I mean put processes in place to be prepared. So the best defense really is just stellar record keeping. You want to establish a permanent audit trail with a month-end close process and a perpetual data room so that an auditor will get in and out quickly with minimal questions. If you have everything they ask for, you're in a good place. So, a cannabis business basically needs to engage with a cannabis CPA as soon as they are awarded a license and ramping up for operations. They're doing everything they can to get their facility set up, hire the right people. Well, don't ignore the accounting side of that as well. It takes time to set up those proper bookkeeping procedures. You need to design a chart of accounts, which a CPA will take care of. And that chart of accounts has to be able to accommodate the accrual accounting needed to maximize those benefits that I was talking about with 263A and 471. If you are calling your CPA, on the day that you open your doors, you're already too late. So accounting and operations need to go hand in hand as you're ramping up. And if you do this, then the IRS really is nothing to fear.
Good to know. Not fearing the IRS is a goal of mine.
Yeah, no, I mean, people tend to open a letter from the IRS and it could be absolutely nothing. And it still just like immediately invokes this like feeling of panic. And so like, that's my job is kind of, from the beginning, just kind of do my best to alleviate that.
100%.
Yeah.
Any other words of wisdom or advice that you would give to someone starting a cannabis business?
First and foremost, go for it. I really feel very strongly that, the world and America needs more entrepreneurs. Small business is everything. So I fully support that. I root for you. So if you're going to do it, go wholeheartedly into it. Don't be afraid to say and tell your neighbors and your family that you're in cannabis. Because I know there's that stigma there, and everyone in the industry needs to do what they can to, eliminate that and correct that, because the cannabis industry will bring a lot of good that is needed and has been needed for a long time. So, get involved. There's a lot of great advocacy efforts that an entrepreneur can participate in. So it's not just about making profit. It's about doing good, doing well and doing good. I think that there's plenty of opportunity out there. And just besides that, go for it, but do your due diligence. Surround yourself with a strong team of professionals that will help you step by step, because there's a lot to it. There's a lot to learn. It's relatively new. Regulations are constantly are changing. So you need to arm yourself with a good team that will help you achieve your goals.
How can people reach you? Because I have a feeling you're going to get a lot of people who want to use your services, since you are so positive and proactive and obviously know what needs to be done.
Well, thank you. So the best way to reach me right now is LinkedIn. My last name is kind of tricky to spell, but I'm sure you'll have it, maybe a link that people can click. So LinkedIn is definitely a great way to reach me. Or also, if you can include my email address and my phone number, shoot me a text. That's my cell. So if you, are interested in learning more, we can set up a time for a call, and I can learn more about you and your vision and what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Allison. This was so informative. It was great talking to you, and I'm sure you're going to do amazing. And the regulations will be here before we know it, and you're going to be plenty busy. So everybody, you need to get Allison now before she's like tapped out on clients.
Cool. Thank you so much, Renee.